Hey everybody, what's going on? And welcome back to the show. I'm your host, Drew English. If you work in commercial production as a director, a cinematographer, a photographer, maybe you own your own production company, and you have Instagram, I bet you've seen today's guest pop up in your feed. I'm super excited to be speaking with none other than Lisamarie Shires. Lisa is a commercial EP and producer turned business coach who now works with creative professionals in the commercial industry to position themselves and find success in an ever-changing landscape. Lisa's super cool. We had such a great conversation. We talk life. We talk mindset. We talk tactical and practical tips and advice to find success in the commercial industry in 2025. If you are listening on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever, leave us a 5-star review, subscribe to the show, and if you're watching on YouTube, a thumbs up and a subscribe is also appreciated. Also, I recently started rolling out an email newsletter. If you go to drewenglish.kit.com, I would love to have you along for the ride and hope to see you there. All right, there you have it. Without any further delay, here is my conversation with Lisamarie Shires. What I find really interesting as I did a little more research on you and listened to some past interviews you've done and things like that is you started as a creative yourself and then you moved into producing. And these are all worlds I'm very, very familiar with because I work as a DP or have primarily for the last decade or so. So, that's a world I'm very familiar with. And then over the last year and a half, I've partaken in coaching programs, some group coaching programs, business education and mentoring. And so that's very top of mind. It's really shifted a lot of my thinking. And the fact that you're taking your past experience and work in the industry and kind of morphing that into a coaching resource for people, I think is really, really cool and really just spoke to me personally, which is like, okay, cool. I'm going to reach out to Lisa. I know she's done podcasts in the past, so let's just see if she's interested. So thanks for coming on. But, I think before we get into anything else, just give us a quick, it can be really, really brief, but where did you start as a creative? I know it was in photography. And then how did you move into producing? And what did that first part of your career look like?
I love this question. And I'm going to answer it probably a little bit differently than I've ever answered it for anyone else before. But I got my start on a creative path by sitting in a fuzzy cubicle in a room with no windows and overhead fluorescent lighting that buzzed all day long and saying, this isn't it. This isn't it. So yeah, I pivoted out of, I started my career in college. I studied economics. I have an MBA, and I was working in government contracting for 6 or 7 years, doing stuff that I can't talk a lot about. But I knew very deeply, in my core, this is not it. This is not it. There's something more. I am meant to be creative. What is it going to be? And I discovered photography. And so while I was doing that job, I went to school in DC, started studying photography. And then when I felt okay, I know what I'm doing behind the camera, I'm going to take the leap. And then when I took the leap, that's when I started to get my business education, my true business education, as a creative. So kind of fast forwarding, photographer, freelance. I started out doing retail family stuff, then moved into more editorial and commercial work. Then I had my first baby and I didn't want to, carry equipment anymore. I was there's something I'm being pulled in another direction. And what could I do that blends my passion for business, my passion for being an entrepreneur, and my passion for creativity at the same time? And that's when I fell into producing. And so I have been producing ever since. I started way at the bottom. I've worked with a lot of really great, amazing people in different types of business structures. So everyone from individual, single sole proprietor reps to small boutique production companies to global advertising agencies and global creative production companies, and then owning my own production company too. So I've done a little bit of everything, and I think that's what gives me a nice, really well-rounded, holistic approach to not only understanding the path of a creative, but deeply understanding the path of entrepreneurship and like running a business. And then pairing that with the education that I have on the client side of like understanding like what do clients really want? How do you speak their language? And then how does all of that apply to who and how you show up in your business as a creative? So
we're going to come back to the parenting stuff because I'm a parent myself. So we're going to come back to that in a little bit. But I really like that answer. And I resonate with a lot of things. The not wanting to schlep equipment forever and wanting to have a little bit more. I had not exactly the same experience as you, but I had like a desk job, cubicle job doing tech support right out of college. And I was singing and playing in a band on the side. So I was like getting my creative fix for a while. And it was about 5 years into that, right around the time of Obama's first inauguration, which is the day I got laid off. Fun story. But so like right around the time approaching that, I was like, oh, I need to do something else. This might kill me. So timing wise, it all worked out. But I had kind of a delayed reaction to what you had almost immediately. So in addition to the things you already mentioned, like, you know, being able to like leverage more expertise and not carry gear around and just like have your hands in more pies, so to speak, in different areas that you're really comfortable with on the producing side. What else, if anything, did producing do for you professionally, personally? Like, what was it about that, other than what you've already told me, that made it such like a great fit?
I think what made it a great fit is, well, one, I still got the creative fix that I needed, because there are points where I would act as like a creative producer too, and it wasn't just like logistics and money. There's an adrenaline to the job that can be very addicting.
Totally.
It could be very addicting in a way that's destructive, or it could be addicting in a way that is constructive and can like help you or help the people that you're working with like propel forward. And I think learning how to navigate that line was also addicting for me, like in a really like good way. I think, you know, with anything that you do creatively, it could be very easy to get distracted. It could be very easy to spiral. It could be very easy to let your mind take the wheel instead of like making sure that your mind, your heart, and your intuition are making the decisions in what you do. And I think through producing, I really was able to perfect that. I made a lot of mistakes, but producing offered me the opportunity to go deeper in myself. And it also offered me just like a mirror of like how I show up as a leader, how I, you know, guide productions, how I show up in the client relationship. And I saw some things early in my career that like later it took like some maturing and some experience to, you know, look at that and be like, oh, I don't want to be like that. I don't want to be that person. And so producing offered me all of that. And I can't be more thankful for having found that path and choosing that path. It's a little bit of a deeper response than you were probably expecting, but
no, but I think it's all really valid and welcome, because, you know, anybody who's listening who's in the film and video industry, I think can totally relate to the addictive nature of like just being in the weeds. And like when you're on a project, you are on a project, and it is like you are all in and you're working with a team, big or small, and you're all working towards this common goal. So it's like very easy to like really quickly get buried in the weeds. And finding that balance is really hard. And I'm not going to like mince words. At a certain tier and a certain section of the industry, it can be really detrimental to personal lives. Like, you know, people want to have kids, they can't have kids. People lose their relationships because, you know, their whole life is work. Like all the negative sides notwithstanding, you know, I think anybody listening who's in film or something similar can relate to that. But also, you know, I think it's totally valid to say, yeah, this was a great way for me to flex like all the different muscles I have and learn a lot in like kind of a trial by fire scenario. Because I mean, honestly, anybody who thinks they're going to succeed and not make a ton of mistakes is shitting themselves. I mean, let's be honest, you know, it's like You have to make mistakes and you have to fail at something to improve. And you just have to have the time in. So I think that's really great. What pulled you away from producing and into coaching?
So as I was coming up as a producer, I would be working with associate producers or like even like interns. And I was always the type of person that I was like, come over here. Let me show you what I'm doing. Let me take you under my wing. Let me like mentor you without actually saying that. Like it was just naturally how I showed up in the job. I always wanted to lift other people up. I always wanted to pull back the curtain. I wanted to show them how the job worked, how it applied to what they did if they were not a producer too, like whether it's a director or a DP or whoever else. So I was always doing that with my colleagues, with my friends, with my peers. And what pulled me all the way into coaching, like I didn't even know coaching was a thing. Like I'd heard the term like life coach before, and I was just like, oh, that's for broken people. That's for people who are like not doing well. I knew nothing about it. And it wasn't until around 2019, 2020, a friend of mine, I met her. She was a photographer. So I knew her from my photography days. She kind of like disappeared for a while. Like she wasn't showing up on social media. She got a van. They like drove to South America and we kind of like lost touch. And then she kind of resurfaced and she was posting all of this like motivational stuff geared at creatives, just like some business stuff too. And I was like, what is she up to? Like, what is all this? And I dug in and I reconnected with her and I found out that she'd become a coach. And I was like, okay, now I'm curious about what this is, because around that time, like right at the start of the pandemic, I had a moment where at the time, I was working in-house at an advertising agency, basically as their in-house EP, doing some of the biggest work that I've ever done in my career. And literally, I could not have been more depressed. I couldn't have been more depressed. I couldn't have been more just like empty. And I remember looking at myself in the mirror one morning, like I got up, I walked into the bathroom, I put my hands on the vanity, and I just actually looked at myself. And for one, realized I haven't actually looked at myself in a really long time. But then I looked at myself and I was like, what are you doing? Like, what are you doing? You are not happy. You don't feel fulfilled. You're not making the type of impact that you want to be making. My family life was like not great at the time. Then I remembered my friend and I was like, maybe I should talk to her. Maybe she can help me. I was, very much like at a pivotal point in my career of like, what path do I need to be taking here? What's next for me? And I wasn't coming up with answers. And so I reconnected with her and the first conversation, I was like, oh my God, what is this? This is what I have needed like for so long, this type of support, a coaching support to help me get clarity, to help me make a plan for what I'm going to do next, for help me to like bring some awareness to how I'm thinking and how I'm showing up. And I ended up hiring her. So she was my first coach and it couldn't have come in a better time, like right at the start of the pandemic, right? And it was such a transformational experience for me. I feel like I met myself for the first time. And at the time I was in my early 30s. And I feel like I met myself for the very first time. And I all of a sudden was like, oh, there's all of this space inside of me that I can be filling with all of these exciting things. And I could be shifting the way that I work and the way that I'm serving and like helping people. Because right now I'm helping at this ad agency. I'm helping our clients. I'm helping our clients make money. I'm helping the agency make money. I'm helping us like win awards and like create like amazing content, awesome commercials. But there was something about that just didn't feel enough for me. And through the coaching experience, I realized very, very quickly what could. So at the end of my time with her, I think it was like one of our last sessions, her name's Piper. I was like, Piper, I think I need to become a coach. And she was like, I know. So like she knew all along. So I went ahead and I got certified. I went through one of the most rigorous coach training programs in the world. And it has like coaching has completely transformed me, but has actually, I'm going to take that back. It hasn't transformed me. It helped me step into who I really am, and who I was always like meant to be. And it's just so soul satisfying to have that and to know that now. So I trained. At first, I thought I was going to coach high performing women in executive leadership. And then when I hired my first business coach, when that wasn't working, I hired my first business coach, and she was just like, Lisa, you have access to this industry, all of these people, you have this extensive, deep network. Like, what are you doing? Like, trust me, let's explore this a little bit. Because at the time, I was kind of like overproduction. I was like, I don't want to do it anymore. I'm going to like completely pivot. But when this business coach brought this to my attention, she was like, I think that there's something here and it's worth exploring, like, in considering. It really helped me to reframe how I was thinking about the production industry at the time. It helped me reframe it in a way of like, I can still be creatively involved in an industry that I love, that I've been in the trenches with people that I love and have been in the trenches with. And I can help them and serve them in a completely different way.
Yeah.
And that's when I decided to jump right back into production, but in a different capacity, and helping people grow their businesses from a place of service versus showing up in a transactional nature, and helping them to step into a level of self-leadership that they haven't had to push themselves into before, to get things moving in their businesses and to help them increase their revenue, to step into their like fullest potential and power as the creative geniuses that they are. Take a breath for a second.
If I could reach through the screen and give you a hug right now, I would, because you said so many things that I'm just like, yes, totally. I completely relate to all those things. So like, to step back a minute here, like you having that moment of like looking at yourself in the mirror and like feeling like you were just kind of seeing yourself for the first time. I'm in my early 40s and I feel like I'm having that now. And maybe some people call that a midlife crisis. I don't necessarily say that. But
We're past midlife. We're past midlife right now.
yeah. It's just having that realization of like, oh, I know that there's so much more to offer. And you're finally starting to pull yourself out of like the head down mentality of like just go, like, hustle, work, like all that stuff. That's pretty prevalent in our world. And just like try to figure out, what else is there? There's more. What is it? So the other thing that I'm sure this factors into, like doing this career pivot into coaching, aside from like being drawn to it and to help people and to be of service and all those things that are so like honorable and really positive, you're also a mother trying to live life. Like I have a 3-year-old. You have multiple kids, right?
Yeah, I have 3 kids under 10.
Bless you. So, you're trying to live life. And as someone who's been working primarily in production and trying to figure out what's next on my end, just managing one with my wife, it's like, I'm sure work-life balance and parent-life balance, or parent-work balance, however you want to categorize it, looked a little bit different when you were producing versus what it looks like now. So like, how were you balancing it, and how are you balancing it now, and how has it improved? Like, I'm so curious, like as a parent myself.
Yeah. Okay, so I'm gonna go to a place. We're gonna go here that I think some listeners in here, people that are listening to this, are going to be able to relate to. And I think it's something that doesn't get a lot of attention, or it's not talked about a lot, because it could come off as being like a shameful place to be. So I had my first baby in 2014. And at the time, I was like in the trenches of producing. And like you said earlier, like when you're on a job, you're on a job. And one thing that I did during that time, as I'm raising my baby, as I'm like feeling so empowered in what I'm doing in my career, it was really hard for me, because I was then faced with like, okay, I need to find a way to balance both of these. But what I was really doing was I was choosing the career. I was choosing the career. I was prioritizing the career over the baby, over the family, over my husband. I was choosing the career because the addiction, because the adrenaline, because I felt important, because I felt like I had an identity in the work. And I didn't know this new identity as a mom. Like, I didn't know it. I didn't know how to dance with it. I didn't know how to connect with it. So it was really, really hard for me. I think, though, my husband is my favorite person on this entire earth. He's the strongest, most secure, like, man I've ever met. But did not get to that point without doing a lot of work. So, he is always going to be my best mirror. And there was a point where he was like, Lisa, like, kind of like shaking me by not physically shaking you by the shoulders, but kind of like, Lisa, we're not your priority. It's very clear that we are not your priority. And as soon as he said that, I was just like, whoa, you're right. You're right. I denied it until I got to the point of like stepping into my own vulnerability and saying, you're right. So with him, calling that out, and then like coaching entering my life, doing a lot of therapy, individual and like couples therapy, for sure. It's like, I think the way to get through life is by leaning into the resources that are at your disposal and that are available to you. And there's absolutely no shame in getting the support that you need, whether that's therapeutically, whether that's in a coaching space, whether that's, from a mentor. And I think, all of that knowledge and information that I was gaining from doing that type of work really helped me to get clear on, okay, how do I want to show up in this career? Because I can do both. I think for a lot of creatives, especially in production, it's like when you start a family, all of a sudden it's like, how the heck do I do this? How do I like manage all of this and like balance this? Like, I get called away on a job, I might have to leave for multiple days or multiple weeks. And then that leaves my partner in a sticky situation. And then if they also work, it's like, who's taking care of the baby? It's like all of these things. It's a lot. It can weigh really, really heavily on the relationship. And it can weigh really, really heavily with like how you think about your business and like what you're saying yes to and what you're saying no to, and having to say no to the things that you want to say yes to because you are, trying to be everything that everybody needs. And that could really break a person. It could really break a person.
Yeah.
And I've been at that breaking point. My husband's been at that breaking point. But like I said, leaning into resources, getting vulnerable, admitting I can't do it all. Like admitting that I just can't do it all and I need help and I need support, and then actively going out and seeking it has led me down an incredible path of healing, an incredible path of growth, but has also helped me step into being the type of leader that I want to be and crafting a life that I want, a business that is life first. And that has been what has led to many of the pivots that I've made in my career. Always making sure that I'm prioritizing something that is life first, that is family first, that works for me and works for my family.
Let's pause there. I mean, I think intentionality gets overlooked so much, especially in the States where like work is top. And then, you talk about like film and creative industry. And like I've said before, it's all about the hustle. And people feel like they need to consistently do the hustle to stay important and stay top of mind to the people that pay them. I mean, I've gone through a bunch of this stuff. It's a really, really hard balance. I fully resonate with all of that because that has been my struggle since my daughter was born. It's just like, how do I balance this? And one thing I will say, just to add to the pot of all these different things, I have to take jobs that, I may not want to do, that take me away from my family and take me away from my daughter, because it's like, that's just what I have to do. And I feel like so many people are in that boat as well, addicted or not. It's like just another piece of wood to add to the fire,
Yeah. Yeah. And I can relate to that too, because when I had my other two, I have twins, I had my own business. I wasn't working for anybody else. I owned a production company. It was a complete startup. We were figuring all of this stuff out, kind of like building the thing as we were flying. And I had twin infants, and I had to go around the country, like selling our production companies, selling my directors and my DPs. And it was just another awakening moment of like, Lisa, what are you doing? But yeah, like to your point too, like I had to say yes, like my partner and I, like we had to say yes to jobs that were like definitely not aligned with like where we wanted to go and where we were taking things, because like I wasn't making a ton of money. Like I wasn't making a ton of money. My husband was laid off at the time too. And then he got a job like pretty quickly. But there was a point where it was just like another like shaking by the shoulders moment of like, what are we doing here? What are we doing?
Yeah, for sure. This will be the opportune moment for me to give props to my amazing wife, who literally holds up the whole house all the time.
Yes, mad props.
She's awesome. She's the best.
One thing I will say really quickly, sorry, not to cut you off.
Yeah, no,
One
please,
thing that I will say is like, I made decisions for my career first, and then I pivoted to making decisions for my family first. So literally they have been, my kids and my husband, my family have been the reason behind every single change and every single shift that I've had. And I wonder what things would be like if I did not have this family.
Yeah, you know what? I'm actually glad you brought that up, because I feel like that's where I'm at now, and kind of what I've been kind of going through internally for the last year or so. No, I think that's totally valid, and I'm glad you said it. I'm really glad you said it, because that's something that's top of mind for me. I'm sure it's something that's top of mind for so many other people. And just to tie it back to film in general, especially in an industry that's gone through a lot of turmoil in the last like post-COVID years, basically, I think that's top of mind for a lot of people, like prioritizing what really is important. Work post-COVID, at least for me, and everybody's different, but for me and a lot of my colleagues and friends, work post-COVID has been really, really hard. And it feels like every year it gets a little bit drier. The opportunities get a little bit less. Do you feel like that's true? Do you think maybe I or people like me have maybe like a narrow or slanted view of things? Like, I'm curious what your take is as someone who deals with people like across the spectrum.
Yeah. So here's my take. My take is our industry has experienced a lot of change in a very short amount of time. Anytime that there is change, there's a lot of fear. There's a lot of uncertainty. There's a lot of unknown. And there's a lot of all kinds of people like trying to figure it out or put meaning to it or figure out what the answer is. And what I have observed over the last few years in the different roles and capacities that I've worked at in this industry is that because of the different shakeups that we've had, buyer behavior has changed, consumer behavior has changed in general. And in the commercial world, that means advertising has to adapt to those changes in behavior. And so it's kind of been like this trickle down effect that has like a delay or like a lag time to it. It was of like, okay, I'm going to spend my money differently and I'm going to consume things differently. And now the people that are going to advertise all the things that I want have to then adapt and adjust to me and what I need and what I want, which is different now. And then the agencies have to get their clients on board to realizing that and understanding that. So it's like this, like, it's like, like this whole like breadcrumb effect. Like you're following these breadcrumbs all the way down to the people that actually like make the commercials, the filmmakers, yes. The filmmakers or the photographers or whoever. So, I feel like where we are at now, we went from, I will say, as soon as I entered this industry back in 2008, it has always been the story that there's not enough money, there's not enough budget. That's always the case. But now the way that clients are spending their money and the way that agencies are advising their clients to spend their money is different. When there's a lot of uncertainty in the market, like the actual stock market, election years, like all of this stuff, like COVID, like everything, when there's uncertainty, the budgets shrink. People are afraid to put their money out there. They're afraid to spend the dollars. They want to, if they are going to spend their money, they want to be darn sure it's going to get them the return that they're hoping for or that they're expecting. And so that has really impacted the freelance world for production companies, like all of the people. Now there's a little bit more certainty. Things have stabilized. The market and the economy have stabilized from where it was. I'm not going to talk like politics or anything like that, but I mean, anytime that there's an election, like there's always just a lot of like chaos and like uncertainty in a lot of different industries, but especially ours. So what I am finding is agencies want to make their clients feel safe. They want to be good stewards of the dollar. So they are much more, they're going to scrutinize the creative process much, much more, which means any creative director, photographer, DP, production company needs to understand that, and they need to show up in a way that provides safety and provides certainty for them to spend the type of money that we wanted to get back to seeing in budgets. It also means that there's like this requirement now of getting out there and starting to create your own opportunities instead of waiting for the opportunity to come to you, because there's a lot of protection around the opportunities that are out there and available. It's a big part of my work. It's a big part of my work in helping people to learn how to create their own opportunities, because we have rapidly shifted from being more transactionally focused in production to more relationally focused in production because of the things I shared. Like, people want to feel safe. People want to feel like they have the right person for the job. They have hired an expert, and that expert is going to guarantee the result that they need and that they're after.
It's like, don't think about yourself. Think about what you're bringing to the table for the people that you want to hire you, Think about them. I think that is a mental shift and kind of like a business approach shift that needs to be more prominent, especially now where things have been kind of up and down for the last few years. Before I took like any kind of steps into business mentorship myself, I was blind to all that. So I think, I would assume that this is a big kind of topic of conversation with a lot of your coaching clients, at least at the outset.
Yeah, definitely. And it is a big awakening moment when people realize like, oh, that's the shift that I need to make. Because like, I hate to burst anybody's bubble out there, but it's just expected that your work is good. Like, that's just a given, right? They care about the result. They care about you being able to deliver on the result and the outcome that they want. That's what you need to be selling to them. Putting what you want creatively aside for a moment, putting all of the focus on them, and, not convincing, but like coming at the relationship from a place of service and like from a place of value of like, okay, these are all the things about me and about my approach and how I'm thinking about this project that's going to help you get that result. When you are able to do that very fluidly, very organically, and from a place that's not like ego driven or like, diva driven, that's when you're going to see yourself win awards. That's when you're going to see more invitations to come in to bid on projects. You're selling the result. You're not selling the portfolio.
Yeah, and I think it's hard just in general, even if somebody's not like an egotistical person by default, I think separating like ego as a concept in a creative field where you are constantly having to like go to bat for yourself and prove your worth or like hype yourself up more than you think you do. Like all the things that people think they need to do, it's kind of like by association, there is a little bit of like an ego factor that goes into it, which is really hard to separate.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I think for a lot of people, this is the first time we're actually chatting. But one thing I like from what I've seen, just been able to take in from what you do with your coaching, is you kind of meet people where they are and like in their career, and then tweak a direction or a path for them based on that. Other programs in this industry feel like a little more cookie cutter, where it's like, oh, you want to be making 10 grand a month or 20 grand a month in your business. So here's how you do it. Make a video business and go find these corporate clients, and this is how you do that, and this is how you market yourself, and blah 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 blah. Like there's a formula for it. And it's no slight, right? Because I'm sure a lot of that works. Like there are people like making legit money. Here's my problem with it, just for me. And this is why I think I vibe with what you're doing. What if I don't want to do that? It's like, I want to be like, what if I want to go, shoot for HBO? Or what if I want to, like I have my own a production company that's like my business entity? What if I want to get it to a point where I can develop my own creative projects and creative projects for other people? Like, what if I want to do that and I don't want to fit in the cookie cutter mold? What's your approach and how is it different than like having like a cookie cutter? Like, we're just going to slot everybody into this program, and the people that make it great and the people that churn out, okay, no big deal. We'll just keep our funnel going and get more people in.
Yeah. So that model certainly works. Like if you are like, I am in corporate videography, I'm like that model will work. Like you can make, forecasted consistent like monthly revenue doing that. Buy the templates, do the steps, whatever. I'm catering to a different audience. I'm catering to the people that are asking the questions that you're asking, but also the people that have been playing in commercial production for at least 5 to 10 plus years, right? So that's where strategy comes in. Why I'm different is not only because of the type of experience that I bring to the table, having been the client, having been the creator, the agency side, production company side, like all that stuff. I'm bringing all of those insights to the table, but I have also just like accepted the fact that if you are in commercial production today and you want to stand out, you need to start acting like it. Like you need to start embodying and becoming what you say you want to be and you dream to be. You need to actually just decide that you are already that person. Decide that you're that person already. And then like with that, personal development, it's going to play into your professional development and how you grow your production company. And then that's where the strategy comes into play. So first, it's just like, okay, we need to figure out how we're going to position you here. Because if I hear one more person telling me that what they do is help elevate your storytelling in a way that makes an impact, I'm going to puke. No shade, literally no shade. I say that because many people, many of my clients don't have the language to use yet to differentiate themselves. So we first solve for that. So we need to solve for what's the language that you need to be speaking? How do you need to be articulating who you are, who you help, what you help them do? And do it in a way that doesn't sound like anybody else. Because no one does the job like you do it. It's just like scientifically impossible. It's scientifically impossible.
And that's the whole thing, as I've learned, and I'm sure you will agree, it's like when you talk about value as it pertains to you as an individual, it's like, it's exactly you as an individual that is the value. It's like you are the value. It's just teasing out, well, what is the thing that you do better or more uniquely or in your own way that nobody else can do?
Yeah, exactly.
And so, this just popped in my head. So what would you say to somebody, because I think this is really good advice. I'm going to take it as personal advice and then hopefully somebody else gets something out of it. But it's like, what would you say to somebody who like does a lot of different things? My own self as an example, I've been a commercial DP for 10 years. I also have a production company that has looked like a few different things in the past, and I'm currently trying to like tweak it a little bit. I have a podcast studio that I'm sitting in right now that gets traffic, and I do a lot of work with that. And that seems to be increasing more because podcasting is kind of an interesting meld of skill sets and something that people want a lot of. It's like there's a lot of scattered things all over the map. I am not the only one like this. There are lots of people that are very good at lots of different things. And it's like, what would you say to somebody who's having a little bit of that creative identity crisis, who really needs to like kind of hone down and like get to that next level and really start like building momentum and revenue and all that stuff?
Well, the first thing that I'll say is there's absolutely nothing wrong with being multi-passionate. It's just a great illustration that you're alive and that you are passionate, right?
Here I am.
So let's just start there. But everything that you're describing, like how I'm translating that in my strategic brain is, you're a DP, you have the podcast, you have a production company. Like these are all just different offers, and not every offer is right for the same target audience. So number one, before I go down that path, getting clarity around like, what is your zone of genius? There's a great book by a guy named Gay Henricks called The Big Leap that talks about your zone of genius, your zone of competence, your zone of incompetence, which is basically like, okay, your zone of genius is you love doing the work. You could do it for 18 hours a day, 7 days a week, and never feel tired or never feel burnt out. You love it. You're good at it. zone of incompetence is like you're not good at it and you don't like doing it, but you're still doing it. And the zone of competence is like you can do it, but you don't love doing it. So I would first get like clarity around that for all of the things. Like what are the offers that you have? Like what buckets are they falling into? Because when you're operating from your genius, when you're operating from a place of genius, like the potential, not only like on the revenue side, but on the fulfillment side, on like how that permeates into your relationships is like profound, is actually profound when you start saying yes to the stuff that is in your genius and no to the stuff that is not. That's like a clarity exercise, right? And then when you have that clarity, you might say like, yeah, I need to drop this and I need to do more of this, or I need to double down here or whatever. And so you might have some pivot decisions to make. Or you can be like, no, all of them are in my zone of genius. I love all of them. And then that's great. But the strategy that you use from a business perspective to market each of those things might be different. And then you might find where the synchronicities between the three are and how you can maybe package that up into being something special and different too. So all of that to say, you have clarity on those things. You know who wants what you are offering. You're very, very clear on who actually wants it. And then getting into their brains so that you are selling them the result that they want is how you can make each of those things grow really well. But then also like, asking yourself questions, okay, and how does this fit into the life that I desire? And how does this like work to give me the balance that I need and I want? Maybe there are more pivots or tweaks that you need to make, in answering those questions too.
Yeah, it's an interesting game of Tetris that we play, trying to like make all the pieces fit together in the right way. But I like that. I like that. And I'm going to put a link to the Big Leap in the show notes. And maybe this is a good question, maybe it's not, but like you seem to be really good and continuing to grow via like personal branding or audience building. And like, this is how I found you, right? You growing your I'm going to call it personal brand because you market as yourself. How important do you feel like building a personal brand is? And also, what would you tell somebody who's kind of going kicking and screaming into doing that? Like, is there like a low barrier to entry that somebody can do to like drive more awareness that way? I do this podcast because I like talking to people. Outside of this, it feels like I'm a little all over the place. I'm like, I don't know how to market myself for the most part. So what would you say to somebody like that?
So I do think that the personal brand is important in developing, but where I think people, where there are pitfalls is when you wait to take action because you feel like the brand isn't where you want it to be yet, where the reel isn't, where you want it to be yet, or you don't have enough work in the portfolio yet because all of this like ties into your brand. And you wait and you wait and you wait and you don't take action. So I think like strategically, and I've said this in a few places, I talk a lot about it and with my clients too, is being visible is incredibly important right now. So the more opportunities that you have to meet people and tell them what you do or to share your genius with them, the better. Like that should be the focus. Like build your personal brand and the personal identity like as you're doing that. Don't wait to do that. And what was the second part of your question again?
Like what's something that's kind of maybe like a low barrier to entry for that, for somebody who kind of goes kicking and screaming into self-promotion?
Yeah. Well, the first thing you need to do is get really comfortable with being uncomfortable because that's business.
Yeah, totally.
So let's just like accept that and move on. Also, on the other side of discomfort is just growth and opportunity. So avoiding the discomfort is actually not helping to propel you as far as quickly as you want to be going. Low barrier to entry. Okay, here's what I'll share on this. You have a network. You know people. Some people know you. Lowest barrier to entry and what might feel a little less scary. I mean, maybe this isn't true, but this is how I'm interpreting it. What might feel a little less scary would be to utilize your existing network people only want to help other people. If you have a friend or a colleague that can play a part in your success, like people love that. It's dopamine, right? So I would start with your existing network, figure out like who's connected to who, and start asking people to make introductions to people that you haven't met yet, that don't know about you and your genius, that don't know about what you offer. And ideally, these are people that want what you have to offer, right? So I would lean into the relationships that you already have, your existing network, and show up as a vulnerable person and say like, hey, I know you, you know me, we like each other. We love to see each other win. One way that you can help me win would be to make an introduction to this person or this person. Or one way you could help me win is like share 5 people that are in your network that I don't know that you think I should be connecting with. So that would be low barrier, quick wins, easy thing to do.
In the spirit of that answer, it's like, I love talking to people. I want to give people a platform to kind of put themselves out there more. I really like what you're doing. I'm passionate about coaching. So it's like, yes, of course, let's have Lisa on the show and let's, like put some of her expertise and her genius out there for more people to find. Like I totally resonate with that. Oftentimes I feel like there's a lot more potential inside that I'm actually able to realize presently, right? And so what would you say to somebody who's in my position or something similar, where it's like, maybe they're not necessarily lost completely, but they're like, oh, what's the next right step? Like, I don't know what the next right step is, but how do I find that next right step? I know I have a lot more to offer. I know that like I can step into more of like my genius and like maybe I'm just 1 or 2 moves away from like a completely life-altering positive like uptick. Like, what would you say to somebody who feels that way but doesn't know how to take the next step?
Yeah, literally. And this is not just because I'm a coach and a consultant. Literally, your next step is to work with a coach or a consultant. Because like if you feel that whisper, like there's something more, I don't know exactly what it is. I might have an idea of what it is, but I don't know the exact next steps that I should be taking. Having an outside perspective, an unbiased perspective that could just like bring awareness to where you're at and help you unpack it and pull that stuff out is going to be the way. You can certainly do it on your own. You can read all of the books that are out there. You can do all of the experiments that you need to do in your business. Of course, just the timeline is going to be longer. So if you're like, no, I want this now, I want this fast, I want this soon, I want to get freaking moving, I would hire a coach, whether that's a life coach, a career coach, someone that is like wears 2 hats like me, like a coach and a consultant, a business coach, like whatever. Find that person, talk to at least 3 of them, just have some informational conversations and then see how you're feeling. Because I guarantee you're going to be like, oh, this is the way.
Cool. I love that. Do you have any like hard and fast rules that you live by or any like non-negotiables in life where it's like, yeah, this is it. This is my framework, so to speak.
Yeah, it starts with my values. It starts with having a very clear picture of like what my values are, which by the way, have permission to change over time. So where I started, a few years ago, like what I value today looks different than how it used to look. So when I am making any decision, whether that's in my business or in my life, I'm pointing back to my values. Does this align with what I value? If the answer is yes, great. It's a yes. We move forward. If it's a no, we pause, we reflect, we think things through a little bit longer. If it's something that you think is a yes and then turns out to be something that actually does conflict or cause tension with something that you value, that's when you're going to feel tension. That's when you're going to feel frustration. That's where you're going to, be doing things that lead to burnout, all that kind of stuff. So I'm always checking in with my set of core values.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds a little cliche, but there is something to be said about trusting your gut. And I didn't listen to that little pit in my stomach for many, many years. And now the more I listen to it, the more I wind up making the right decisions for me. But I hear you. Like, we're humans, we're allowed to evolve. Like those values and that structure can change over time for sure. This has been an awesome conversation. I really like this a lot. Thank you for coming on and talking to me for an hour at this point. What's next for you in the coaching business? Anything new coming up? And also, where can people find you to learn more about you and what you have to offer?
Well, where you can find me, the best place to find me is going to be on Instagram. My handle is at Lisamarie Shires, or you can go to my website, which is lisamarieshires.com. There is a program that I'm working on developing. It's called The Unforgettable Filmmaker. This is a program that is rooted in confidence and leadership. I kind of teased it out there a little bit about a month or two ago, and a lot of people resonated with that. It was like, this is the first step. Like, let's get you rock solid in your confidence and in your leadership so that you are unwavering, because when you're not, you transfer all of that to your potential clients, and then you don't get hired. So we start there. So like, that's a program that's in development. I'm also just really, really jazzed and excited about the group program that I'm running right now. I just expanded it from a 3-month container to a 6-month container. There are 2 different tiers and levels of engagement. And it's so fun for me personally, because I get to go so deep into so many different businesses. And it's just a lot of fun, and people get really amazing results. So that's what I'll share.
I will be sure to link to all that stuff in the show notes, but please definitely go check out Lisa and what she has to offer. Thanks again so much. This has been awesome.
You're so welcome. Thank you for having me.
All right, everybody, there you have it. That was my interview with Lisamarie Shires. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did. Thank you so much for being here. Again, wherever you're listening, give us a 5-star rating or subscribe to the show. If you're over on YouTube, a thumbs up or a comment also goes a long way. Again, if you're interested in the newsletter, drewenglish.kit.com. Come on over, subscribe, and that's about it. Until next time, I'll see you later.